may remember my last Maserati Mistral restoration from June 2023. In this video, I promised that I'd bring you the Lone Star version, and here it is. A past owner has coated the lower half of the body in yellow paint over its original red. Writing this voiceover, I note that Steve Flowers Model Supplies now reproduced the windscreens for this and many other Lone Star models. However, when I recorded the video, I wasn't aware of this. This model actually had a half-decent window compared to the other Mistrals I'd collected over the years. Here's where Lone Star misspelled Mistral, adding an E at the end, making it Mistrale. It kind of reminds me of minestrone soup, in a way. This is how a real red Mistral looks. In that last Mistral video where I restored the blue Siku model, I went into detail on the history of the real car. I'll pop a link here to that so you can catch up if you haven't already seen it. I'll be keeping scores throughout the video about how the two stack up against one another. Straight away we have a score for the Lone Star, as it dismantles in mere minutes with that handy flathead screw. The Mistral followed the Lotus Europa into Lone Star's FLYERS series in 1970 as the first pair of models to have not previously featured in the old Impy range. While the Europa was numbered 36, the Mistral was rather oddly given the number 9, in a series that formerly ran from 10 to 34. Most Mistrals were painted red, while a few had white bodies. It was also coloured in a plated gold or rose for the Silver FLYERS series aimed at the Japanese market. Interiors were all tan coloured, while wheels were predominantly the 5-spoke printed design. Some Japanese literature advertised early Mistrals with the earlier disc wheels, but these can easily be swapped out due to FLYERS' ability to be dismantled. They were produced until the demise of the FLYERS series in 1976. So let's compare the Lone Star with the Siku. The Siku is typically of its time, long and slender. While I appreciate the separate metal bumper pieces on it, which incorporate the headlights, I think the cast-in bumpers are more accurate on the Lone Star, and the silver-trimmed headlights are nicer too. Again, the cast taillights are far better than those on the Siku, which are plastic. They form part of the red plastic interior, but sit far too low, too close to the bumper, and are too rectangular. The quality of the casting lines is better on the Siku, and the shape of the opening doors and rear window are better. But the Lone Star has the added benefit of the opening bonnet and detailed engine casting, so it grabs another point there. Both interiors are nice, so I'd call that a draw, as I prefer the steering wheel on the Siku, but I like the tan interior more than the red of the Siku. When it comes to build quality, it's an open goal for the Siku. The window pieces on the Lone Star are so frail. Mine even broke apart while gently washing it, meaning I will need to try and glue it back together. The real Mistral had wire wheels, so I don't think any offering from Siku or either of Lone Star's 5-spoke or disc wheels stack up, so 0 punti for either there. The final point up for grabs is the internals, i.e. the suspension. Both offer it, so that's great, but the system on Lone Star's model is far better and spongier. It rolls more freely, but this does come at the expense of a taller ride height. That means, for me, it's a 5-3 win for the Lone Star. The proportions, suspension and extra opening features pip it for me. Let me know down in the comments which you prefer, and also tell me if you'd like me to compare more of the same models from different manufacturers in the future. Here's two of my other Lone Stars, each with those problematic window pieces. This one's even missing both A-pillars. So what I'll do is polish up the main bulk of the window piece as well as both of the side pieces that came away earlier. I'll then try my best to glue it back together shortly. I will of course get a replacement from Steve Flowers Model Supplies in my next order from them and update you all in a short. But let's see how I do attempting to fix it myself. As an additional point to my Lone Star versus Siku scoring from earlier, I neglected to pit paint colours against one another. While I do like the blue of the Siku, I much prefer the more realistic red of the Lone Star, I have to admit. I think the Siku's Brazilian rye version came in a nice metallic brown colour, but the quality on the paints on those was usually poor. I'd still prefer that to the white Lone Star or the Lone Star Silver Flyers colours. I wouldn't turn my nose up to owning those rarer models though. Now I'm filling in the trim on this model. They received silver to the headlights and front grille, though the latter was mask sprayed and would on occasion end up on the bumper instead. It also had a silver rear number plate, tail lights and rear bumper. With all that filled out, I clear coat the casting. Then I dab a bit more chrome on the discoloured axle ends before I remove the masking tape that kept the engine bay as bare metal. Right, let's put this Lone Star back together again. I first need to get my repaired window piece to negotiate its way back into the cabin. The fit is a bit tighter than it was before, probably due to the density of the glue. Next, the interior slots in with the steering wheel reattached, and lastly I reintroduce the base. There's a tab at the rear, while the front connects with its original flathead screw, the absolute best feature of the Flyers range. So this was how down and dilapidated my Lone Star Flyers Maserati Mistral was looking before I took on its restoration. A former owner had painted all but the roof portion of the body yellow, and the frail window piece had been coated in black marker. That window piece rather expectedly broke apart during the cleanup phase, meaning I had to fix it myself. This was before I knew reproductions were now out there. But anyway, let's take a look at my efforts. The Mistral is now looking glorious in a vivid shade of red. I've gifted it back its silver trim to the headlights and front grille, and I've tidied up its 5-spoke wheels. I've repaired the window piece as best I could, but I'll post a short when I've replaced it with a healthier reproduction one. The rear has received its factory number plate, tail light and rear bumper trim, and the steering wheel has been glued back in place in the interior. Tell me your opinion on how I've done, especially with that window, down in the comments. And also let me know if you've enjoyed the Siku vs Lone Star scoring system. Be sure to leave the video a like too for good measure. I'm still looking for suggestions for future customs and restorations, so let me know your thoughts on that as well. But all that leaves me to say is thanks for watching, and I'll see you again for the next one. Bye for now.